Welcome to this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast, where we look forward to shaving every day. Welcome to episode 70 of the podcast. My name is Rick DeWeese. I'll be your host today. Today we got a couple of letters, and I'm going to tell you about what I'm doing, just changing a few things up on the podcast front. I've started working out. Call it a New Year's resolution. It was just one of those things. I'll talk about that a little bit. Repairing an old Gillette razor. I picked up an old 1921 to 1929 Gillette Old, and had a very slight crack in the handle. Didn't even notice it. So talk about repairing that a little bit. Just a quick note on haters and some of my viewpoints on haters. And one of the things that I've done here is, since I have the ability now to record in the truck, I found, and I just wanted to try it, I did a couple of days where I just talked about my shave of the day as I was driving into work, after experiencing my shave of the day and some of the insights and some of the thoughts that kind of came with it. And finally, it all started with a coffee cup, I promise. And it just, kind of went from there. Anyhow, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast, and let's get on with this show. I got an email from Joe. Hi, Rick. Just recently discovered your podcast, and I have to admit, I'm hooked. I especially enjoyed the recent episode involving how to hang an axe. I could actually picture the struggle, the countless hours researching online, the excitement of receiving everything in the mail, as well as the process of putting everything together, and the frustration, including making a mistake here and there, but more importantly, the pride of the finished project that you felt when you struck that axe for the first time. While listening, I compared the project to the restoration of a straight razor, which requires a similar set of skills that have been long forgotten. It's projects like this that brought me to the world of wet shaving. There is nothing more satisfying than possessing a skill that is, unique. I began wet shaving 4 years ago. I found a Gillette safety razor in my grandfather's medicine cabinet. He recently passed and left me some of his possessions, most of which I have seen and admired throughout my life. While cleaning out his cabinets, I found the Gillette and immediately became intrigued. He never mentioned this, I thought, while I operated the twist-open handle. When I arrived home, I went to the internet and searched for this mysterious shaving tool that my grandfather never mentioned, and the rest is history. I became a straight razor user soon after and began honing, restoring, and collecting all types of vintage wet shaving equipment, which I enjoy to this day. Restoring a razor is similar to your axe project. A brand new axe from Home Depot will do a decent job, just as a Gillette Fusion will perform a decent shave, but there's something special to be said about an axe or razor restored with high-quality materials. Every time you pick it up, the thought of the struggle, the hard work, and the frustration comes to mind, and you quickly smile as your memory reminds you of what it took to get you there. It's a feeling similar to that of throwing the winning pitch at a baseball game or nailing that high note while singing a solo or passing a test with an A. It's a sense of pride that is only accomplished through one thing: hard work. Thank you for your podcast and keep up the good work. Regards, Joe. Well, Joe, thank you very much. Well written. Wow, that good stuff. In this episode, I talk briefly about a restoration on a straight razor, that I tried and failed miserably. But it's okay. It functions well. It just looks bad. But it's one of those things. It's like you said, the trials and tribulations. I don't know that I'll, even if I do, if I figure out how to do it right, I don't know that I'll change what I've already done, because, it's part of me now. And that's one of the things that I've noticed with axes and knives and razors. They become part of me. They're not anybody else's work. They're mine. They're intrinsically part of me. And that is also, to a certain extent, one of the reasons that you find so much joy in finding and using a parent's or a grandparent's razor. Because intrinsically you understand it's part of them. And it's that connection which makes it all that much more special. Joe, thanks very much for the letter. I appreciate you. I appreciate all you guys that send me letters and comments. You'll never know how much, but thank you. I got a letter from Paul. It says, "Hi, Rick. I've been meaning to write you to let you know how much I've been enjoying your podcasts. I'm very new, less than a month to wet shaving. But being an avid podcast listener, I found you near the beginning. I've been working my way backward through all of them and thoroughly enjoy not only the shaving info, but also your monologues on various other topics you address. You have a great philosophy on life. I also recently placed an order for your 2015 Nathan Clark Brush and Soap and Blade podcast brush. I'm happy to have the opportunity to support the podcast and add a nice, unique brush to my fledgling collection. Thank you for offering it. I'm guessing you'll get more orders than you expect. Also, last night I saw an amazing video that I wanted to share with you. You may well have seen it already, since you've been a wet shaver for longer than me, but it's by Charlie Lewis called Razor Making Overview from Start to Shaving. Knowing how you love sharp things and making things, I thought of you, and had to make sure you were aware of this. It's rather long, and I didn't intend to watch the whole thing last night, but then I couldn't turn it off. I knew very little about metalworking, and it was amazing to watch. Charlie starts with a rough bar of metal and creates this masterpiece, and then shaves with it at the end. Oh, and tonight I heard you talking about the AeroPress. I've had one for 5 years and love it. It's my favorite way to make coffee if I want to take the time to make a really good cup. Anyway, keep up the great work on the podcast. I really enjoy them and appreciate all the work that you must put into them to make the production value so high. Thank you for sharing your gift. Sincerely, Paul. Well, Paul, thank you very much. First off, I wasn't aware of the video, so I'll have to watch that tonight after I get done putting this podcast together. And yeah, thanks. I'll also link to it in the show notes for everybody else, anybody else that wants to see it. It sounds intriguing. Razor making from start to shaving. I mean, that's the title alone kind of grabs you, doesn't it? Also, thank you very much for mentioning the 2015 Nathan Clark Brush and Soap and Blade podcast brush. It is a special offer that we are offering, so I'll use this as a segue into that. Don't forget, you still have the opportunity to pre-order the 2015 Brush and Soap and Blade podcast brush made by none other than Nathan Clark. Part of the proceeds go to support the podcast. It's made with a black resin and Osage orange wood handle. It is very unique and very, very pretty. You get your choice of 24 millimeter knots set to a 50 millimeter loft. You can either get a high mountain white or a badger, or you can get the uber soft 4th generation synthetic fiber knot. Taking orders, I will put the link up in the show notes. You can order up until January 31st. They'll be shipped out at February 25th, close to the end of February. And if you use the voucher BSB at 2015 or Brush and Soap and Blade 2015 at checkout, you can get this brush for $69.95, which is a heck of a deal. It is a gorgeous brush. It's really a nice one. So think about it, and if you decide to go that route, well, we do appreciate the support. So on the podcast front, I believe one of the things I did here on vacation was I did a recording here in the vehicle, and took it back to the computer and attempted to get the same wave forms and analysis characteristics as my my studio mic, which really isn't a studio mic, but it's really not a studio. But there you go. Anyhow, I had not been just super happy with my previous attempts. It was they were close, but it just wasn't right. And so hopefully this one will be better. It's an attempt anyhow. It's just one of those things, you take a little bit of time, you play around with it, you do the best you can the first go, and then you kind of sit back and analyze and go, well, no, I could do better next time. And then the next time comes around and you give it your best shot, and well, no, I think I could do better this time. And that's how we grow. That's how we develop. That's why trying is important, because without trying, you never get the ability to analyze what you've done. And if you don't analyze what you've done, you have no concept of how to change it to become better. You just, avoid the whole proposition completely, which is, kind of a cop-out, at least in my opinion. But, we really need to try. Even if it doesn't work well, it's okay. Try. It's one of those things, I mean, there's a lot of people that do YouTube videos, and there's a lot of people who think, I could never do a YouTube video. Sure you can. Absolutely you can. Will you like it? Maybe not. But everybody else will probably have an enjoyable time watching it. And granted, you may have some haters, but guess what? They're always going to be there. It's just kind of part of the bargain. It's, you gotta attempt. You gotta try. That's like podcasting, There's a lot of people that would probably think, I don't have the voice for podcasting, I don't have the equipment. Sure you do. If you have a smartphone, you have the equipment. If you can record something on your computer, which most people can, you have the equipment. You could do a podcast. Yeah. You need to be able to go out there and try, because every individual has something to share. Everybody does. It's really intriguing. And if you face life like that, if you walk up to individuals thinking in your head that, hey, they have something that they could potentially share with me, and it could potentially be good, and it could potentially be, very intriguing and educational for me. It's really a neat way of going about things. Now, granted, I'm not talking about absolutely everybody, I mean, if you find yourself in a dangerous situation, I doubt very seriously you could have a conversation with people who are willing to do you harm. So let's not take this overboard, but, in general polite society, everybody has something to share. Even the scoundrels. Even the scoundrels have something to share. What do they have to share? They have to share the way of being a scoundrel. And sometimes you can learn a lot from that, too. It's kind of like, I get a kick out of people, lambasting the haters. Sometimes they're good, too, because they teach you how to deal with that, how to either not pay attention to it or actually talk about the points that they're bringing up. It's one of those things. It's all a perspective. It's all about how you take it. Do you take it like a Lord blade, which doesn't work very well? Or do you take it like a Gillette Silver Blue that is just, how do you take life? You can all relate it all back to shaving. It's a great thing. One of the things that I have been doing in this new year is, well, working out. I have decided that I need to be in a little bit better shape to do all the things that, well, I want to do. And, for example, when I go outside and, put a new handle on an axe, I would like to be able to go and use it for a while without feeling like crap the next, 2 or 3 days. So, my wife's been a member of a gym for a while. My son's a member of the same gym, so I joined up as well. And, so far it's day 2. Today wasn't too bad. I've been working with very light weights at this point. More to get the blood flow going than anything else and get my body used to the lactic acid and the stiffness and the soreness and everything else. So we'll see how it goes. It's don't know if my arms will get too big to use a razor or not, but yeah, that's my excuse. I'd use a straight razor, but I can't reach my face because my biceps get in the way. That'd be a heck of an excuse, wouldn't it? Oh well. Anyhow, yeah, that's been going well. I am heading back to the house, and one of the things that I am going to do today is I am going to repair the hairline crack in the 1921 to 1929 Gillette Old type that I picked up, the brass one that is in just wonderful shape. And again, the hairline crack is so small and so minute that the only way that I found it was because of inspecting the handle with a 5-power jeweler's loop. So I am going to take a little bit of marine epoxy and clean everything up very, very well and put just a little bit of marine epoxy in there. And hopefully by the time it's all said and done, you won't even be able to tell that there's anything there. That's the dream anyhow. And or if you can tell that there's anything there, it'll just be a small hairline crack, and I don't have to worry about it, getting any bigger. Some of them that I've seen have been just, ungodly huge cracks in them. Now, on the other hand, another thing that I saw just recently on, I think it was Facebook, was somebody had taken an old ball end handle that was just cracked up beyond all repair, and he had taken a piece of wood and turned a new center insert for it and put that on the brass ball and then the ferrule up at the top. And I'm here to tell you, that looked beautiful. It really did. It was quite the piece. And when you look at it, I mean, that's the way to reinvigorate one of those old razors. I was highly impressed. And for all you guys out there that turn wooden pens, it's very similar. I mean, the dimensions are about the same. And, if you have a small lathe for pen turning, you could crank out handles for these things as well, or at least the inserts, and repair those. Or if you know somebody who is turning pens. I've got a couple of friends who turn pens, and it's something to consider. I hadn't thought about that previously, but it would be something that you could do and do well. And in the end, you would end up with a very, very nice looking classic razor. So I was thinking about something while I was traveling down the road, and what I was thinking about was, haters. And it dawned on me that, like for YouTube or for things like that, there's a lot of people that have a tendency to pile on. And the thing that struck me as interesting is if these same folks had their own YouTube channels, and they carried on the way that they do. It would be very easy to label these people as, well, shallow, because, well, they're competitors. And they would be very easily identified as shallow people for bashing on their competition the way that they are. And the thing that struck me as interesting is these folks, well, they don't have YouTube channels. So the thing that struck me was that, well, they're even less than shallow. They really are. They're disdaining something that was created from someone's mind, from someone's effort, with no other reason other than to complain, disdain, talk negative, it's worse than being shallow. And it struck me as something that is, well, just rather inherently negative. Almost to the point of, well, dare I say it, being evil. And so I wonder, do we even recognize it as that? Do we even recognize it as an evil that we have allowed to slip into our lives, that we have allowed to take over, to change the way we react to people? In a lot of instances, these same types of negative statements would not be made if the person was, well, standing right in front of us. We wouldn't say these things to people. It's just not proper. It's just not right. We would have a conversation, but we wouldn't be inherently negative the way we are on Facebook or on the forums or things like that. We wouldn't challenge people. We wouldn't insinuate. We wouldn't make them look like they have ulterior motives when they may not. We wouldn't do these things, but we do in the anonymity of the internet. And it just struck me as something just so wrong. Anyhow, this morning's shave. Well, first off, the brush this morning was the Samog 830. And must report that the Samog 830 still has it going on. It's, typically I use my 1305 just because, it's my my tried and true, and I really like it, and everything's good with it. But, every now and then I'll reach for the 830 and say, well, let's go ahead and give her a shot and see what happens. And I can say, honestly, that the 830 has never let me down. It has always performed brilliantly. I must say that the 830 is a marvelous brush. It's always performed, well, flawlessly for me. It really has. It's been everything that I've ever wanted in a brush. And the fact that it's an inexpensive bore brush is just, well, part of the fun of it all. I mean, it's for a brush that only costs $20 to perform that well, it's just, well, it's really, it's part of the neatness factor of it, if you will. It's kind of wild when you think about it. It's broken in fabulously. I've used it. It was my first commercially bought brush, really. I think might not have been. It was my first bore brush, anyhow, and it's hard to remember back that far. It's rough getting old, boy. I'll tell you what. Anyhow, the brush again performed flawlessly and really does a good job. And so this morning I mated it with Cold River Soap Works Original Formula #1, and oh, jeez, fabulous stuff. Now Now, the thing that was interesting is my brush. I didn't shake it out quite as vigorously as I typically do. So there was a little extra water in the brush. Now, the reasons that I didn't is that, well, I'm sore this morning. This weekend, and in fact specifically yesterday, I put in a new set of attic stairs. We store our Christmas ornaments and things up in the attic, and while getting the boxes out of the attic to put away all of our stuff, the attic stairs finally gave up the ghost. They were the original equipment, if you will, and my builder was known for, well, not spending top dollar on things, so, they're probably the minimal required, if you will, just to get up there. And so they finally gave up the ghost and busted, and well, we went ahead and replaced them and put in an aluminum ladder that is very nice, very sturdy. Oh my gosh, it's night and day difference. The old ones would creak and move and shake and, shudder and act like they were going to tear up at any moment. And this new one, aluminum, is just solid as a rock and not an issue. And it does a really good job. Anyhow, the new ladder is doing an absolutely excellent job. And I'm glad I put it in. There were just a few hiccups on it. I mean, not too awful bad. It's relatively straightforward. Now, the good news is that, again, doing it yourself, at least trying, but doing it yourself, when I went to Lowe's, I can actually put a price tag on doing it yourself, because going to Lowe's, I noticed that they had a thing up on their up near the attic ladders that said they would install an attic ladder for $391. So a day's worth of, well, actually a half a day's worth of effort and work. Call it 5 hours at the outside, and, when everything's all said and done, $391. I'll have to figure out what the hourly rate for that is. That's not bad. But anyhow, so that's why, being up in the attic and, bending and twisting and carrying and, torquing down fasteners and hammering and just all that stuff, it's not the everyday. And so, when you wake up in the morning after having done that, well, I was a little bit sore. So I couldn't quite shake out the brush quite as much. Back to the story, anyhow. So I couldn't quite shake out the brush. And so I had a little bit of extra water in it. And so it started out, I'm thinking, gosh, this is going to be a little soupy. Well, what I did to make up for that is I didn't add any extra water at all in the lather bowl. Normally I add 1 teaspoon. I didn't add that today, and so in creating the lather, it ended up being a pretty nice lather. It could have used just a touch more water, but that's okay. Since I used 2 lather bowls, one in the sink to hold hot water, to rinse my razors and just hold hot water a little bit longer. I don't use as much hot water that way, and it just seems to work well for me. And in doing that, I can always dip my brush into the warm water that's in the second salsa bowl there, and add a little bit more to the mix, and get it the way I want it to. But it was pretty close anyhow. So the performance, of course, is Cold River soap works excellent, and worked very, very nicely. I used my old razor this morning, the old brass Gillette old type, 1921 to 1929. No serial number on the thing, so kind of unknown when the year was in there, but it's an old one. And feather blade, second go around on the feather blade, did a marvelous job. It was it really did a good job. It was interesting. The other day I was using, I can't remember, I think I was using Cella, and I found that I had to keep things well lathered up because otherwise the brass on the razor would, I don't know, stick just a little bit to my skin. With the Cold River Soap Works, there's enough lubrication in it and residual lubrication. I didn't have that problem. I mean, it's just get the razor just slightly damp and away she goes, and the brass just kind of glides gently across your face, and it was really an interesting thing. I hadn't really noticed that before. And I'm thinking that's one of the reasons that they nickel plated them and chrome plated them, just again on reflection, is that the brass has a tendency to, stick just a little bit to the skin, whereas the chrome and the the chrome and the nickel and silver and things like that don't. It's my theory anyhow. Well, I'll have to do some investigating and test that theory out. But for right now, that's my theory, and I'll stick with it until, well, proven otherwise. So anyhow, finished up. It was a 2-pass shave with a little bit of touch up around the neck, and it's I still have problems with the with under the chin area. It's just it's difficult to get that well just because of the angularity of it and all. And I mean, it's socially acceptable down there. Everywhere else, it's pretty much BBS, but socially acceptable on the jawline. So all is good with the world. And I chose not to do an aftershave this morning. It just, I don't know, it just didn't seem like the thing to do. It was just, okay. Sometimes I do that, Sometimes an aftershave is like, okay, maybe, I don't know. Just don't feel it. Sometimes you just got to do what you feel. And well, there you go. So this morning's shave was with Mystic Waters shaving soap, Jeff's Lavender. I hadn't used Mystic Waters in a little bit, and, well, it needed some love. Now, I started out this shave with a straight razor that I've been working on for a while. I picked it up at an antique store or a garage sale or something, can't remember when. Really nice blade on it, big, thick, heavy blade. I thoroughly enjoy the blade. But the scales that came with it were, well, wrong. They were short. It had been rescaled. So needed to do something there. Now, so I cut the scales off and got those off of there, ground down the rivet and took those off, and then proceeded to, well, attempt to make a set of scales. Now, I'd never done this before. I wanted to give it a shot just to, to try. Like I do always say, what could possibly go wrong? So I made some scales and made them out of I believe it was holly. I think I had some holly laying around. And so I made some scales out of holly. They're a rather unique design or shape anyhow. And, well, I liked them. Used some, I can't remember what I used for the wedge. Some piece of hardwood that's much darker than the holly, so it gives a little contrast there. And glued them together and shaped them up and proceeded to attempt to put them together. Now, when I did that, I went to Ace Hardware and picked up some solid brass brads. Now, the brad head on one side is, well, perfect. It's just the exact size. The brad head on the other side, well, there is none. So you have to cut it and peen it. And, of course, I'm not real good at cutting and peening, and so it ended up bending over, and it looks like, well, garbage. It functions fine. It looks like crap. So there's a thing that I need to know is how do you guys that restore these things, what do you use to attach the scales to the blades? what do you use for rivets? I don't know. I need to know that. Now, I'm very happy with the way that the scales themselves, the shape of them, how they turned out. I would have made the wedge a little bit, less of an angle. It has a tendency to spread the wood just a little much. There's a little tension there. Anyhow, I was using that razor for the first 2 passes, and it did a very nice job on my for the first 2 passes. Now, this razor has not been honed. It has just been, sharpened by me, and that maybe leaves something to be desired. But there it is. You run with what you got. And so I did the first 2 passes with that, and it didn't do too bad a job for the first 2 passes. And then for the cleanup pass, I looked down, and lo and behold, what was sitting there at the edge of my sink but my Schick Hydro Magic single edge. So that's what I use to clean things up around my jawline and neck. And of course, it did its usual fabulous job. And with the amazing lathers that I get from Mystic Waters. And again, I understand that some people have issues with Mystic Waters. I have insanely soft water, and it's not much harder than distilled water, so I get really good lathers out of it anyhow. And when I then put in Mystic Waters and a boar brush, and things just kind of naturally work well for me. So I'm very fortunate and blessed in that regard. But with that said, I did get a wonderful lather. I ended up 3 passes and a touch-up pass for the Mystic Waters, and of course the lovely smell of Jeff's lavender, wafting across the room and just enveloping my everything. It was just good stuff, and very very nice on a morning after just very nice, very pleasant. So anyhow, the scales on the straight razor, I will put pictures on the blog and in the show notes if it'll take pictures. I don't know if it'll take pictures, but post them up there to on the blog anyhow, so that you can see the evolution of the scales. And it's one of those things where just like everything else, you don't learn until you try, and you don't, you're going to mess up. I mean, it's no big deal. I can always make another set of scales, and I've learned a huge amount in the process, which in and of itself is, like I sometimes say, worth the price of entry. I've got the wood handy, I've got the tools, so it's not that big a deal, and it's kind of fun. It's just one of those things. So anyhow, I wanted to report on today's shave and kind of making some new scales for a razor. And the picture, of course, shows the good side. I won't show its bad side. There's some some people would say it's a scar, or it's a deformity, or it's unpleasant at best. Anyhow, that's what I wanted to report this morning. Because, at the end of the day, I would love it. I would absolutely love it if everybody out there just went out and tried something. It doesn't matter what it is. Just go out and try. Even if you screw up, who cares? It's kind of fun just going out there and trying. It's liberating. And, it's amazing what happens when you get up and do, and don't succumb to the throwaway world. Don't succumb to the idea that everything has to be done for you. Don't succumb to the fact that the only way to have anything is to buy it. Sometimes it's better if you do it yourself. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. So this morning's shave was with Basilica Queen Charlotte soap. Excellent soap, one of my favorite soaps, just, well, because of the smell. The performance is not bad either, don't get me wrong. It's not just about the smell. The performance was excellent as usual. Used my 1305 Samog brush, lathered up the Basilica in the old salsa bowl, modified slightly. It, of course, filled the room with that wonderful, wonderful frankincense and myrrh smell that at least I have come to know and love for Basilica. That's one of the reasons that I enjoy it so much. Out of all the soaps that Queen Charlotte makes, and in fact, out of all the soaps that I have tried, quite honestly, my absolute most favorite smell is frankincense and myrrh, and Queen Charlotte has hit it on the head. And so I enjoy going back to the well, as it were, because that was one of the first reviews that I ever did, was on Queen Charlotte soaps and Basilica. And so to go back every now and then and walk down memory lane, just from the wet shaving standpoint, but also because of the smell, it brings back some very, very fond memories for me. And so this morning's shave was dedicated to Queen Charlotte soaps. Now, the other thing that was interesting was on Instagram, I had a follower post their lather of Queen Charlotte soap, Basilica. And so I was, well, inspired by that as well. So all good stuff. Now, the razor that I used was my 1921 to 1929 Gillette Old. It's got the feather blade in it, and the feather blade, I could probably get a few more shaves out of it, but I may bin it. It's been a week, and or thereabouts, and so it's done an excellent job. No nicks or cuts. You know, very good shave this morning. No nicks or cuts or anything like that. It did a very nice job. Now, I was in a little bit of a hurry, so I just did 2 passes and a quick touch up. So essentially I was going for socially acceptable. I wasn't going for a relaxed BBS shave. So did a nice job. Finished up with a little bit of Pinot, Special Reserve, which is always nice. It's one of those things. So I bought myself a new coffee mug. This coffee mug is a little stainless steel coffee mug. It's one of the ones that is double-walled stainless, so it insulates. And I got it from REI, and it holds what would be considered a small cup of coffee. But the advantage that this has is that I can grind coffee and put them in an AeroPress, into an AeroPress coffee maker, which I happen to adore. And that AeroPress, one shot from the AeroPress, fills this cup up perfectly. No additional water needed. No, nothing else. Just, coffee. It's good stuff. It's really nice to have a coffee mug that is just a perfect size for an espresso shot. It's very, very handy. It comes with a little lid, which I don't use normally. I'll use it when I'm camping maybe, but under normal conditions I will not. Does a good job of keeping the Java very warm, and so I'm very happy with that. Got it with my dividend dollars from REI. I've been a member for REI for a long time. In fact, I was actually a member back when I was in the Navy in Seattle. I joined REI way back when I was in Seattle. I used to go over to the store over there, which I think is the original store, and get things from them. And I had forgotten about it. I'd really forgotten about REI until, I bought a couple of things from them, but I'd gone up to the store up in North Carolina to get it. And it was one of those things that, you just kind of lose track of. Well, they opened a store here near me in the upstate, and so I went ahead and stopped in, and they said, well, would you like a membership? I said, well, I think I'm already a member. And they said, well, let's look you up. And sure enough, they found me, and yeah, good stuff. Granted, I didn't have any dividends by then because, they only last for a couple of years and then they disappear, which is cool. I'm okay with that. But I enjoy having an REI store near me. Do I like all of their stuff? No, some of their stuff I find to be outrageously expensive. But overall, it's not bad. It's kind of like a Bass Pro Shop or a Cabela's or something like that. Would I buy everything from one of those places? No. But every now and then you can recognize that for certain items anyhow, they have good deals. And it's just one of those things. So I found this little stainless steel cup, and it seems to be serving its purpose absolutely just flawlessly, and I think it was a good purchase. So far I'm very pleased, and the best part of it is that I get to enjoy really, really good coffee in the morning on my way to work or when I'm just loafing about the house or whatever, and having good coffee is important. To me, making good coffee is kind of like having a good shave. It makes a statement about life. It's kind of like the difference between cooking breakfast for yourself in a cast iron pan on the stove with free-range eggs and decent, bacon versus, going to McDonald's and buying an Egg McMuffin. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Egg McMuffin will get the job done, but it's not the same at all. It really isn't. It's, kind of like that with coffee. I mean, fresh roasted, fresh ground coffee out of an AeroPress, or even a French press. But the AeroPress it does a beautiful job with the paper filters. It just really does. No more mud. The ability to have good coffee in the morning that just has exquisite tastes and flavor profiles and a delicacy about it at the same time that it's hearty and bold and just, good stuff. It's very similar to the difference in shaving between, wet shaving with fine artisan soaps and, a good brush and decent razors and blade combinations with a nice aftershave if you happen to use one during for that shave or not. And it's that kind of a difference. It's it's good stuff. And I really think, because I've noticed there are a good number of wet shavers that are also coffee people that enjoy home roasted or at least fresh roasted coffee, fresh ground coffee, and it's that same level of experience. And I find it's the same thing with writing instruments, specifically fountain pens. There's a lot of people that are wet shavers that also enjoy fountain pens, and it's the same dynamic. It's the same quality. Yeah, it's a little finicky, I guess some would say, because you either have to have ink cartridges, or you have to dip the pen in the ink bottle, or you have to load the pen with ink or whatever. But it's the same quality, and for a pen it's very tactile. You can feel the difference in writing, especially if you have decent paper. And granted, a lot of the papers that we use are, not decent. They're borderline marginal at best. But if you have a fine paper, a heavyweight paper, and a fine writing instrument and wonderful ink. And just, it makes such a difference. It really does. And it becomes habit forming. You find that, grasping a fountain pen and using a fountain pen versus, just a regular ballpoint pen is night and day. The ballpoint pen almost becomes like the multi-bladed cartridge razor. It's not the same. The tactile feel of writing with the instrument is different. It's not enjoyable. Now, the other thing that can then be said is the same thing can be said for watches. The fact that people who enjoy wet shaving also tend to be people who enjoy mechanical watches. Why is that? Because there is an admiration, just a joy in the fact that a watch is a mechanical tool, a mechanical instrument, a fine piece of gear that functions flawlessly and just repeatably in years and years, and it's not a throwaway. It's something that you buy quality and that you enjoy over time because of that quality. And it's the same principle as buying a good razor, or either a new one or a vintage razor, a good single edge or double edged razor, or a straight razor, and enjoying it over time because it's the form following the function, and it is the epitome of usefulness, and if you take care of it, it will last. And it's one of these things where, new and improved is not better. Yeah, quartz is convenient and everything, but it lacks life. It lacks a soul. It doesn't, it just doesn't have it. There's a lot of things like that. Knives are another thing. Yes, you can buy a cheap, fully marketed blade that, may be sharp when you buy it, and a week later it's dull and there's really nothing you can do to help it. Or you can buy a good quality Gerber or, SOG or, one of those and have an enjoyable knife that will be a beautiful instrument that's well made. And yeah, it costs a little bit, but it's well made and made for a job, and it does the job well, and it's just that quality component in the things that we use on a daily basis that it just makes life enjoyable.
Well, that concludes this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you have some suggestions or would like a topic covered, drop me an email at brushandsoapandblade@gmail.com or give me a call at 864-372-6234 or contact us on Twitter at BrushnBlade. You can also visit us at our blog, brushandsoapandblade.wordpress.com. As always, we're available on iTunes and Stitcher.